Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon at the FEJA4 edition. I'm Melissandre Monatus, and I will be hosting this panel for the next 45 minutes, alongside with 4 experts from the esports industry. We are actually very lucky to have 2 of the panelists based in Africa, Morocco and South Africa, and the 2 others based in Europe, mainly France. The 4 panelists are Desiree Koussawo, Samy Ouerfelly, Nicolas Holden, and Evan Mayfield. They will help us answer the panel question of today, which is a Pan-African Esports Tournament circuit, dream or reality? I suggest 2 phases for this discussion. The first phase will be to understand what is the current state of the African Esports Tournament circuit nowadays, if there is any, if it's still a dream or it's already a reality. And the second phase will be more about to understand what are or could be the criteria or the signs that could help us qualify the Pan-African Esports Tournament circuit as a proper reality or actually just a dream for now. As we, in the European countries and US and Asia, we can have that statement that it is a reality, but is it today for Africa? Then we will close this panel with a small conclusion from all the panelists. And now I'm happy to kindly ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves to all of you. So I'd like to start with Nicolas.
Perfect. Hi. Thank you so much, Melissandre. My name is Nick Holden. I'm the co-owner as well as co-founder of African Cyber Gaming League. We're a tournament organization based in South Africa that does run online tournaments throughout sub-Saharan Africa. Most of our events, however, do take place within our borders. And we've been growing for essentially the past 4 years to the point of where we've basically built up a user base of up to 45,000 users. We've run over 1,400 tournaments during our lifetime, both at small scale as well as at large scale. I think in terms of our focus and going forward on the continent, rather, is just to be able to make sure that we can focus on grassroots community, but also try to add to the rungs of the ladder that needs to be built for the esports players across the continent.
Thank you, Nicolas. I'll ask then Desiree to also introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm Desiree Koussawo. I'm from France. Actually, I'm the managing director for ESL France. ESL is the main global esports event organizer in the world, and I managed to organize the Gamers Assembly in France. It's the biggest French LAN party with 2,500 players on site and 25 visitors during the events. That's all.
Thank you, Desiree. Then Samy, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Very excited to be here. I'm Samy. I'm the head of new business at FEJA4 Gaming. FEJA4 Gaming is a global agency based in Europe with offices in Berlin and in Paris, but also in Southeast Asia and in America. We are doing a lot of things because we are a real 360 degrees agencies with more than 200 employees. But what I would say that is related to this panel is that we are also organizing on behalf of Riot Games the Prime League in Germany, meaning we are organizing everything from scratch, from social media to events to players management and of course the competition. And but as an agency, we are not bound to one specific task, and we have many different departments.
Thank you. We have normally a 4th panelist, who is Yvan, but I'm sorry, I think he's not yet with us, so he will probably join during the course of this panel. Yvan is working in Morocco for... oh, sorry, I lost it.
Webedia.
Webedia, merci, thank you. He's working for Webedia in Morocco, so I hope he will be able to join because he's in the field as well. I suggest that we start now perhaps with Nick. Maybe you could help us to understand what is the current status today of the esport industry, but mostly what we are talking about, the African Esports Tournament circuit currently, according to you and your experience.
I think from my experience, I can speak true to what I know from the South African perspective, but also a little bit about sub-Saharan Africa. I can tell you from our side of things, there's been attempts to scale operations over the past 4 years in terms of esports. So we've got a little bit more of a reliable calendar for the players. I think that this has had its problems at times in terms of rewarding consistency for the players across numerous titles, because I think that's where we're sitting with a little bit of a problem in our own right, is that you've got so many titles, is which one do you really push foot with? So in terms of the landscape at the moment, it's very intermittent in terms of the amount of tournaments that there are. Some periods will have a lot of high-scaled events and with ranging prize pools from massive huge prize pools that contend with essentially Europe, but all the way to the much smaller prize pools for the players. And I think when it comes down to the circuit side of Africa, there isn't a individual circuit. There's a lot of tournament operators throughout the country, and they're each running their own individual components based off of their own criteria, and thereupon they decide on which player base they're going to really root it in. I think further from that, when it comes down to where we're sitting as a continent, we're sitting at what I would say is very much a semi-professional to hobbyist when it comes down to esports. I don't necessarily think we're at the professional level just yet, because we're not building professionals in an environment where they've got regular prize pools available to them. It is the very small margin that really does make it through to the likes of Europe or North America, where there's a little bit more opportunities. But I think therein lies the opportunity for Africa to really turn something on, is that we've got a lot of players across the continent, and I know for a fact we haven't even reached a small percentage of that market, because there's just so much more to really go towards, that we need to be able to turn that into more consistent opportunities across the board for these players, so they've got a level of attachment. I think where the circuit lies, it's not going to necessarily just be built off one tournament operator, but really almost a leveling system of multiple tournament operators to be able to activate locally, activate on the medium scale, being in their relative districts within countries, and then further from that, from the national level, and hopefully building that towards an African level as well. These all take stages, and they all take time to be able to grow. So I don't think we're there yet, but I think the opportunity for it to activate is readily available. But with that opportunity is going to come down to a lot of investment in our sector, to be honest. And I mean that both from a monetary and time scale.
Right. So as you have an experience as an esport player yourself, how is it today for a young player to be able to think of becoming an esport player? What that person has to do concretely?
So I think the general side of being an esports player and being able to have a title available to you that has a consistency of tournaments available. I mean, you can be the best, for example, let's say Tetris player, as one of the weirdest examples of all esports, if I could call it that. But there might not be tournaments available for you, and this might be true of even a game like Gears of War locally, or let's say Call of Duty, FIFA. So as an esports player, you need to define what options are available to you. And certain titles are a little bit more formulated in terms of having opportunities readily available. So games like CSGO, FIFA, Fortnite to an extent, Warzone, I know, is an up-and-coming title, and therein they have some opportunities. So I think coming up as a player, you need to evaluate what those opportunities are. If they fall into your wheelhouse of what you're capable of, whether that's being as an FPS player, essentially being, if you want to be able to play MOBAs, if there's that kind of opportunity for you, you need to be able to attach to those titles more regularly and be adaptable. Unfortunately, we don't just have availability just for certain titles across the board. There's a growth limit, and unfortunately you'll hit that limit just depending on what title you're playing. So those that's really the impetus on the tournament operators, to be able to build that for, once again, a long-term opportunity for these players to attach to, but I also go with the slight asterisk to say, you know what, enjoy it, put your time into it, but also make sure that you're balancing these things. Becoming an esports player in Africa is very, very, very difficult, and it's a percent of a percent that will make it through. So being able to build yourself as an identity, as a creator, as an influencer along in that path, that's only going to help you to give you more options or more tributaries on essentially your river esports journey.
Right. Yeah, that's what you did actually.
Yeah.
It's really what you did. So okay, and what about the events, the tournaments that are happening currently in Africa? Because I know for sure that there is at least the FEJA event. I participated in this myself 2 years ago, but I assume this is not the only event for now that has tournaments across Africa. So I would like you to perhaps tell us if you know more of it.
100%. Well, when it comes down to these events, obviously a lot of them are online at the moment just because we're sitting in this COVID period. But COVID period aside, there were a number of expos that from a South African level that our tournaments would attach to, or tournaments of various tournament operators in the country would attach to. And that being the likes of Rage, you would have Rand Show being set up. But as far as events available at the moment, I think there's a lot of ways for players to be able to connect via online platforms. I know from a South African perspective, I'd say that there's 3 main ones being ACGL, VS Gaming, actually Nodwin Gaming and Metal State. There's probably 4 operators there that players can connect to locally, and there are operations that sometimes go outside of those borders of sub-Saharan Africa. When it comes down to as far as that extends into the Northern Africa, I'm going to have to raise my hand there and say I'm not too sure exactly who's taking control of these environments, because once again, I think it's the localized attachment that becomes first and foremost a consistency opportunity for the players to make sure that they've got a community that can go around, the players that they go around. And I think I've brought this up with you a couple of times, is that connection is so important. So you want to be able to play with players within your connection environment as well, especially considering that we've got a lot of titles that we play here locally that are played on European servers or Middle East servers. So we need to make sure that our players are playing within that confined environment, but also giving each other a fair battlefield to be able to play on. Because if it comes down to us playing against the European players directly, unfortunately, we're dealing with 160 to 180 ping. We just don't have the advantage there. Yes, some players can rise up to the challenge, but it is a difficult task in its own right. So building that locally is an absolutely huge effort. But when it comes down to operations, I think being able to find those local operators will give you a little bit of a branch out to what is available on the rest of the continent.
Yeah, actually, maybe Samy or Desiree, you can tell us a bit more about the technical challenges that you may think that Africa is facing today. As I understand, that there is a market that is nearly ready. At least there are a lot of young people who want to surf in that esport industry as player, as influencer, as commenter. So there is an ecosystem that is getting to be built currently. But what do you think is missing in Africa to become a continent with in the same respect than Asia or US or even Europe in the esports industry could have oh, sorry, I lost my word, but to ensure that we can say it is a continent that is readable for esports.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to go first? Okay.
Yeah, perhaps I can go first. I think there is many reasons why we don't have too much professional esports player or professional esports tournaments in Africa. First, I can say that Nick has a lot of chance to be in South Africa, because in South Africa, I think you already have some infrastructures like servers, some data centers. So you can play some of the biggest games, I don't know, like Counter-Strike, with good conditions. But in the rest of Africa, it's really a problem. And yeah, for sure, with my ESL brand, when I come to Africa and I see how much the infrastructures are so poor, then we cannot really create something like an international standard show in esports. That's why first we cannot at the moment create something on the continent. The continent need to build its own infrastructures with the help of the publishers, the operators. If we don't have these conditions, I think we will continue to have some mini competitive scene like South Africa or Morocco, because North Africa perhaps can connect to Europe or Middle East, and South Africa has its own servers. But if you go in West Africa or East Africa and Southern Africa, you don't have anything. That's the first thing. The second thing is about the revenues. We are all business companies, so when we are going to esports, it's just to earn money. Yeah, everybody will say, yeah, we love esports, we want to make esports grow in Africa, but first we have to earn money for that. And oh, there is something. Yeah. So when we don't have some sponsors, some partners wanting to come in Africa, to invest in Africa, to support us building some esport competition, we cannot build anything. So that's really something we have to explain to our partners. There is opportunities in Africa. See South Africa, there is really opportunities there. We have to invest in infrastructure, in operators, and then we can help the communities, the grassroots communities, the semi-professional communities to grow, and then to build a really professional esports scene.
So this is something that perhaps the different countries should think of. I mean, it's political decisions then, I guess,
yeah,
rather than
just part of. There is, there is some government decisions you have to invest. Like when you want to develop industries, you have to build some roads. You have to build, some train, some infrastructure for train. So the same. If you want to develop your digital ecosystem, you have to invest in digital roads like data centers, fiber, and so on. So that's the first thing. But there is also opportunities for private investor. Like, I don't know, you have telecom operator like Orange, like I don't know, Inouï in Morocco, like in South Africa, I think it's NTM or something like that. So
MTN,
you have many,
Vodacom, quite a few.
So you have many operators that could really invest in, and there is a market for that. And if you have infrastructure, you will have the whole ecosystem with the publishers, with the tournament operators, and then it's like the Formula One. If you want to develop your market and sell a simple car, you can push it with the Formula One marketing. That's the same. If you develop esports in Africa, then perhaps you could develop just a digital market with computers on phones. That's the same way.
Right. What about you, Samy? What is your take on this discussion? Or maybe would you like to?
No, I will definitely wrap up things, because between what Nick said and what Desiree said, there is not much things to add. But I basically totally agree with what Desiree said. I will try to synthesize with numbers I gathered before the panel. I just read that 28% of Africans have access to internet, so definitely not compatible with esports. There is also this GDP issue you have in most of the countries in Africa. and that's for the glass empty head, half empty. And if we go directly on the global numbers on the gaming market, you see that basically we have pretty much the same number of players in Africa and Europe. Basically, round numbers, 365 millions of players in Middle East and Africa, 386 million in Europe. But when it comes to the revenue per region, you have 6.2 billion in Middle East and Africa and 32.9 billion in Europe. So you see the huge difference. Of course, there is an issue there because when you're a company, exactly as Desiree said, this is probably not the first territory you will think about investing in. That's point one. But I don't want to only see the glass half empty. I mean, Africa has basically 62% of its population who is less than 25 years old. While, for example, if we take Europe, you have only 27%. So there is a huge opportunity on this territory. That is why I think that not only African countries should work, but we should all work together to make this continent as appealing for companies as we are right now in Europe, in certain region of Asia, not everywhere, and in the US, of course. And I'm sorry for everyone. I have construction in my flat, which explains these weird noises. And it's not my flat; it's above me, unfortunately.
That explains the noises. Thank you.
Definitely, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Samy. Perhaps so we are still missing Ivan. Unfortunately, is still trying to connect with us. We have about 15 minutes left to go. What else could we talk about? But I mean, do you, for instance, I know, Desiree, that you go often to Africa for business. Can you perhaps let us know what you witness? Unless, I mean, you said that the infrastructure were poor, but what would you find positive then in the events you attend?
Yeah, I think Africa is really Africa esports ecosystem is very resilient. Yeah, there is problem with connections, with latency and so on. But when we see on the games that are really played in Africa, you see that mobile games are really strong at the moment. If you see a PUBG Mobile, for example, I think it's some of the biggest and the more active scene in PUBG Mobile is in Africa. Why? Because it's a mobile device, and this is something you can more easily use in Africa. The same for console games like Tekken, Street Fighter. So Africa players they find a way to enter the esport ecosystem on these platforms. That's not the huge platform we use in our ESL competition, like Counter-Strike, or Dota 2, or Fortnite. These are PC games, and these are really the biggest esport games we have for now in the world. But in Africa, we have our own ways to develop our own ecosystem, and I think that in the future, perhaps Africa could get a lead on these platforms. Yeah, I don't know if Nick knows. I'm sure he knows, but there is already some initiatives like African Esports Championship. When Nick said formerly that there was a way to build, an African championship with multiple actors, that's already the actors are building at the moment. We have, I don't know, I think it's something like 30 countries with local operator gathering to build a global continent championship. Yeah, it's still small with small cash prize. I think the whole cash prize for the whole continent is perhaps less than just Nick competitions. One unique competitions. But that's the first path, and I really think that Africa is resilient. And when I go to Africa and when I see, not South Africa, it's for me it's like Europe, But for the rest of Africa, there is really some strong willing to build something.
Would you like to add anything, Nick?
Absolutely. I mean, from my side of things, I love that Africa is at least talking to one another, and I think that's going to be one of the most important first steps in being able to get this moving forward. And mobile gaming, for me, as Desiree highlighted, is going to be a vital point for Africans as we see mobile penetration only increasing with time, as well as networks on the mobile side of things also getting better with time. And I think that's what we see is that Africa is going to be on the roadmap eventually. It's about, can we put down the structures now ahead of time as much as possible and as wide stretching as possible to make sure that we can capture players that want to be a part of that journey. And I think that's what's exciting about this for me, is that the African story in terms of esports has always been the dark continent. I mean, you have a look at any esports map, and it's very, very sad. You get to see North America highlighted, South America highlighted, Europe highlighted, Asia highlighted, and Australia and the Oceanic side highlighted. And then they call it a world tour. And then you see this very dark continent that gets completely left out, and that's Africa. And I think we've got a very exciting way to be able to build that forward. And I think, as I think also highlighted with you, Melissandre, is that Africa is going to need to be different. We don't have the infrastructural start that Europe had. We don't necessarily even have let's say we don't have the title or at least in terms of like Activision, Ubisoft, we don't necessarily have their direct support as they would have done initially. I even look at tournament operators of how they started in North America, Europe. There was a large injection initially, and still to this day is from those operators to get the engine moving, to get it started. However, Africa, it's almost too late for us in the journey. It feels like the Industrial Revolution all over again for us. But this time for esports, are we going to be left out of starting that engine? And I think if there's any impetus, it's on us. We need to be able to put in that hard work and the hard yards, because the reward will be there at the end. But ultimately, I think we're on a positive journey at the moment with esports, and it all starts with stuff like this, is being able to communicate with one another and actually build that conversation so we can start working together in our different environments and really try bring as much to the table as possible.
Yeah.
What I want to add as well is that we were talking about mobile, and again, there are opportunities with 5G. But if you look at 5G in Africa right now, where it is exactly, South Africa only. So
Togo.
Oh, really? I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Since last week.
Okay, so I'm
well
not
done, Togo.
But that could be definitely a leverage as well for esports mobile. But let's take things in perspective. There is an example of a country that is quite big, not as big as Africa, but quite big. We're talking about India. And India at the very beginning was very similar to Africa. There was no or close to no infrastructure. You know that India is very fragmented as well. And there is a company, happens that I know its CEO because it was a former ESL or is still affiliated to ESL. And he built a lot of things in this country. He built some infrastructures. He went to publisher, showing them the opportunities to have all these young kids playing on their games, forcing them to invest in his company, and with the promises of a return on investment on this. And right now, what do you see? Millions of players on PUBG Mobile in India. This wouldn't be possible without everything he has done. But yes, it took time. We're talking about 2010 or 11, I don't remember exactly. It takes years to do that, but he managed to do it. And now there is a very nice esports scene in India, and publishers are definitely interested. Some of them are invested, and he's in direct line with some of them, including the biggest, who sometimes don't even talk to Europe or the US. So there is example to take there as well.
And was that person helped by the authorities as well or not?
Not win.
Yeah, not real entertainment. Maybe, I'm not sure about that. As far as I know, it was private investment and the road was long, definitely. And I know that he's also interested in Africa right now, not because he chose to go to Africa, but it was just logical. He said, Africa is basically the same story I built in India, so definitely I will help there. So this is the kind of entrepreneur we need around the table to make Africa as big as it could be.
I agree. Who could? That'd be nice, actually. Really. Not sure who yet would like to do it, but I understand that from the experience I have gained in Africa so far, it was thanks to Siddiq Bakayoko, who actually organizes as well the FEJA event, and who is also one of the investors in his country to promote video game and esports. So I think he's doing a big job, but alone I also think it's really difficult. So hopefully, perhaps some more people could join him on that journey. But yeah, we need people who volunteer for that for sure.
Yeah, and keep in mind the mindset Nick explained. Everyone needs to talk together. Everyone needs to be gathered around one common goal: how to improve the overall digital environment in Africa. This is not the story of one man in one country. This is many countries working together, taking example of what has been done in other countries, working with people who are right now inside the industry that can help them to go faster. So no, I wouldn't see the glass half empty. There is definitely hope. Yes, it will take time. It will not be for tomorrow, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to work on this.
Yeah, and it will maybe progress way more quickly than what happened for us in the European market, for instance.
Certainly hope so. It took us almost 15 years.
So fast.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get Sammy's glass to overflow at one point.
Yeah, definitely. But Nick, I wanted to check with you. Do you have actually some users from your platform from the west or the north of Africa as well, or is it mainly South African players that you?
So we IP restrict to sub-Saharan Africa. We have had Egyptian players for the Call of Duty mobile side of things wanting to get involved. And once again, a lot of these players on sub-Saharan African side, that is outside of South Africa, they're more than often getting involved in two types of titles. And those are mobile titles as well as fighting game titles. Fighting games were actually one of the initial ones getting involved because we actually set up an event at the time to basically incorporate all these countries wherever possible, where there was the likes of Zambia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, a lot of countries being able to participate. But I do see the future for that in Africa being more towards the mobile side. And yes, we've seen players register from all across the sub-Saharan African continent, which is really exciting.
Yeah, cool. Oh, definitely. I see the timing now. We have about 4 minutes left. So perhaps could you guys conclude on that question that we had for today? Dream or reality?
I'll go ahead. Why not? I think it's very much going to be a reality. I think it's a matter of time before Africa really turns on and builds its own esports journey and its own esports narrative. I think it's gonna take a considerable couple of factors before that happens. In the same way that it was India, there was a couple of perfect synergies that happened at that time in terms of being able to have their online connectivity with mobile devices become even cheaper. But they had people working diligently, as you pointed out, in 2010, 2011 to make that happen. And as long as we as Africans are actually putting in that work to work hard diligently, it's going to just require that spark of those two connection pieces of opportunity and structure to come together to really turn this one up.
Thank you. What about you, Desiree?
Yeah, for me, it's already a reality. Like I said before, you already have some initiatives like African Esports Championship. When I see what all these actors are building now, I think this could be the origin of the next global championship in Africa. And if they succeed, then they can perhaps activate some initiative from operators, from publishers to build the infrastructure and all the technical needs we have on the continent. So for me, yeah, it's really a reality. And me with my ESL tag, I really looking for opportunities to build something in Africa, because when we are saying in our marketing tags ESL a global company, global is global is the world, the whole world, and like it's global but with a hole in the middle. So it's really something for me to strike on. I really want to make the global reality. So yes, it's really something. I think. So sorry for Ivan, but yes, WC already tried to start something in Morocco, then in Senegal, I think. So I think all the biggest actor like YesLVC, ESL, and other operator will to Africa, because it's the next biggest market for esports. Certainly on mobile, on console gamers, I really think that there is something to build.
Thank you, Desiree. What about you, Samy?
Well,
As a
the last
conclusion.
time I spoke was kind of a conclusion, but what I will
Oh, you
add
d'accord.
after Nick and Desiree is that basically I wouldn't focus too much on the global championship, but more on a project that would gather people that really wants to build something tangible in the continent, give a vision to investors or private actors, and work from there. After that, if this is in motion, the rest will follow. That's 100% sure. And we are lucky right now in Europe or Southeast Asia or in the US, but we are definitely willing to help. And also the knowledge and the companies need to be in Africa. This is also very important, not importing everything. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice conclusion to maintain that it would be better if the effort comes really from the within rather from external companies and so outside Africa. It's better
Absolutely.
that it gets built from the inside. I think it's a very good conclusion. I share that opinion too. Yeah.
No,
sorry,
I didn't have anything else.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, to have participated with us to this panel. I will have to end this now. We are really sorry that we couldn't get Yvan Eyfield to join us during this panel. He works at Webedia and he had some experience to share with us, but unfortunately, maybe it will be for another time. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day, and please keep coming to the panels organized by FEJA. Bye-bye. Paradise Games.
Bye. Thank you, Melissandre. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.